evening. I hope that you're having a lovely Friday evening. My name is Sheraton, and this is my channel Showing the Ends. And this is I suppose, I'd say this is, oops, there we go. This is a channel where we do tarot. I do tarot, read cards, and I will also be doing, and I do political tarot really. Specializing in British politics and other British issues that are currently going on. Tonight is the first I'm doing in a series of the future of British democracy. Now, the reason why I'm doing a series on this, as you will know, if you have ever seen any of my videos before, I have a tendency to be, what's the word? I have a tendency to kind of go deep, and I talk a lot, which may or may not be a bad thing. But then again, considering the medium, is me on a video and people watching me, I suppose if I just sat here and said nothing and just pulled out the cards and showed you, that would make it really quite dull. So yes, so today we're going to be looking at the future of British democracy. While I decided to do some research, because I'm kind of a nerd and I don't particularly enjoy being wrong, although that being said, if someone has information or if there's something I've gotten wrong, not like with my kind of not with my ability to foretell, because obviously if I've gotten something wrong with my ability to foretell future events, then it's going to be glaringly obvious that I got something wrong, which is fine because I'm a human being. I am fallible. I mean, I know that a lot of people are quite dismissive of tarot readers, and often, sorry, I just noticed my hair was looking a little bit crazier than usual. Oh, there we go. There. See, everything seems to be a little bit reversed. But anyway, yeah, so if I get factual information wrong, then I'm quite open to someone correcting me. I absolutely do not mind, because even though this is a tarot channel and I am not a what's the word? See, even though this is a tarot channel, well, I say it's a tarot channel, it's more than a tarot channel, but even though that's what I do here on the channel, it's this is, I would say I do this not so much to educate, because this is not a documentary. I am not, as I said, I'm not, a member of parliament or anything like that. But the information that I convey, I get it from credible sources, some of which is the mainstream media, some of which is the alternative media. However, their sources are from the mainstream, where they do analysis. And the analysis they do is not conspiracy theory type analysis. They will speak to people like economists. They will speak to trade union leaders. They will speak to politicians. So those are the kind of the sources that I tend to get my information from, as well as mainstream media, because I'm not really interested in falsehoods. And while opinion is helpful, sometimes, especially when the analysis is done by someone who actually knows what they're talking about. Whilst that is helpful, you cannot purely go on someone else's opinion. So tonight I'm going to talk about protests. Tonight, part one will be about protests. I have a whole list that I have created. I think that this video will be part one of a 4 video series. Now, let's have a look see. Okay, what have I got here? I took some notes. Okay, now we're going to be looking at various issues within British democracy. So we're going to be, tonight we're looking at the Police Crime and Sentencing Act for 2022. That was the act that was just passed this year. We're also going to be looking at the Elections Bill, because there are a number of issues with your average ordinary British voter being able to turn up at the polling station and cast a vote. This government have decided to make some changes there. Then the third one will be looking at the Judicial Review Bill. This is a bill that makes it harder to challenge the government in court. And it also changes the rules so that if you win a court case against the government, it might not even be worthwhile. Your winning the court case against the government might actually be meaningless. The fourth one and the last one, we're going to be looking at the Human Rights Act. The government want to replace, they say replace, the Human Rights Act with something. I don't know what they're going to replace it with, but they're going to replace it with something. And we're going to look at those things. But as I said, me being me, I don't know if you've ever watched my channel before, but with me being me, it's usually always a deep dive. So up tonight, the Police Crime and Sentencing. Ah yes, Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act 2022. Now, this is an effort to clamp down on protests. This includes, okay, I've got the cards here, so I will be reading cards tonight. It's not just me talking. Of course, I'm talking, but you know. Okay, so I'm going to try and be succinct because there's quite a bit to get through. Right, so, excuse me, dry mouth. Okay, so we're going to be, it's the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act clamps down on protests, creates new powers for the police, will criminalize Gypsy, Roma and traveller communities under criminal trespass laws. Now, I haven't looked into this particularly deeply, but trespass was not, it is now, but was not a criminal offence. Trespass was only a criminal offence if if the home was in current use, I believe. So it would apply to domestic properties and possibly commercial properties if they were in current use. And then it wouldn't be classed as trespass. It would probably be more like a burglary or something like that, or theft through burglary. Anyway, some kind of theft offence would be involved there, because really and truly, why would you break into the home of someone who, okay, they might be, you know, down the road buying a packet of biscuits or something, but why would you break into their home if you weren't going to try and nick something? But if you're dealing with, say, an empty house, no one lives there, then you're looking at what's the word for it? There's a word for it. Squatters. Yeah. Squatters. So squatters would have rights. Squatters used to have rights in this country. Let's say someone is homeless and they're looking for a building or somewhere to live. There's a house, it's empty, there's no one lives there. It doesn't look like anyone's lived there for the last 10, 20 years. You break in. Obviously, the electricity isn't on or anything like that. So you wire up the electricity to the power grid and they do some bits and pieces so they can get running water, and they're living there. And maybe they've been there for like 5 years or 10 years. And then suddenly the person who owns the property turns up, and the people who live there who are squatting are like, well, this is our home. Do you have to go through a court? You have to go to court in order to get those people evicted. But you couldn't just turf them out onto the streets straight away because the squatters had rights. So those are the kinds of things that trespass laws used to, or trespass issues that used to come up before the courts. Now, in the case of Gypsy, Roma and traveller communities, now if they move onto a site, and there's only specific types of sites that they can move onto, or will move onto, I should say. If they move onto a site, regardless of who owns it, because there's supposed to be local authority land set aside for these communities. However, a lot of local authorities no longer do that. They've sold off the site because they don't want those particular communities in their community. Now, there's all kinds of issues here about prejudice that I'm not going to touch on today. And the reason I'm not going to touch on it is not because I don't think it's important. I do actually think it's important, but because I don't know enough about it to really go into detail and discuss it or even do a reading on it. And I would feel incredibly irresponsible discussing something and giving out information on something that I have very little, if any, knowledge about. What I can tell you, however, is my feeling in regard to that particular issue. In regard to that particular issue, it does smell. It's a bit fishy. In regards to that particular issue, I do think it's a bit racist. I think it's a bit racist for the fact that local authorities are supposed to put aside land for these people to stay on with facilities, and many local authorities have not been doing that. So it makes it harder for these people to find somewhere to stay. And even in the cases where they've clubbed together and they said, right, we're going to buy some land. We're not going to ask anybody else. We don't have our hand out begging. We're going to buy some land. Even when families have gotten together and they've bought the land, asking the local authority for planning permission so they can build on the land and then become a static community, has often resulted in the local authority refusing them planning permission. And in some cases, as I recall vaguely, there was something orchard that took place a few years ago, where these people had lived on the land for 20 years. They had built homes. They saved their money. They worked hard and they built homes of a decent standard. Some nice looking homes. They'd asked for planning permission. It was denied. And what happened? The police came in, and so did the bulldozers, and they knocked down their houses and told them that they had to move. This is land they owned. It's not my community. But I can say with my whole chest, as an ethnic minority person myself, I know what it looked like to me. Black people, we don't have the same issues, but we've had similar issues in the past. But yeah. So I felt it was important to discuss that point, as I see it. This is my opinion. Everything in this video is allegedly and in my opinion, although I base my opinion on factual information. It's my analysis. My personal view is that it stinks of racism, and that's one of the issues with this bill. That was not even a bill anymore. It's an act because it was passed this year. Now, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. As I said, I told you the reasons why. So we're going to move on. Now, another issue, as I said, new powers for the police. These new powers will also deeply affect communities currently subjected to over-policing, such as Black and ethnic minority males. What does the actual act entail? It creates a buffer zone around Parliament. We're going to deal with that one. It gives police the power to impose noise-based restrictions on protests. So, if you are protesting and you're not whispering, that's a problem. It criminalizes one-person protests. If you're going to look up one-person protests, I haven't Googled it, but if it doesn't come up in Google, it should. You should see a picture of a man called Steve Bray. That is Steve, and his surname is Bray. Check out Steve Bray. He's a champion. Oh, crumbs. Okay. Right. Number 4. It gives police the power to impose restrictions on public assemblies. Number 5. Create the offence of willful obstruction of the highway. However, this only applies on the strategic road network. I think the strategic road network would be places like dual carriageways and motorways. I'm not sure if it's everywhere, all the other roads everywhere else, but I think those might be it. But I could be wrong, and please feel free to correct me. And as I said, point 6, it criminalizes trespass. Now, so you may wonder, who is protesting? We have Steve Bray. Okay, right. So we've got this guy in the UK. His name is Steve Bray. Oh, good evening, Paula. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Thank you. Yes. So we've got this guy called Steve Bray in the UK, right? This guy was really upset that we voted for Brexit in 2016. And he's just an ordinary bloke minding his own business, and he's just going about his life. And then the whole Brexit vote happened, and he's like, hell no. So Steve, just an ordinary fella, decides he goes out, he puts on a Brexit top hat, he gets a sign, end Brexit now, right? Hi, Paula. Yes, end Brexit now. I have a little something here. Oops. Ooh. Right, let me bring up Steve Bray because he is absolutely hilarious. This man is just a national treasure. Let's have a look. Let's see if I can find him. Okay. This, I don't know if you could, oh, crumbs. Manage my cookies, save and close. Right, this guy, this guy is Steve Bray. Okay. Right, he has a post here in The Guardian. This is fascism. We are all being attacked. Stop Brexit man Steve Bray on lies, police power and free speech. For 5 years, the top-hatted maverick has roamed Westminster shouting at Leave-supporting politicians, heckling interviews, belting out songs. And why did he make this a mission? And will the law against noisy protests shut him up? Now, this was in July this year, and no, it hasn't shut him up. He won't shut up. He is, there you go. He started a movement. This guy started a movement. Okay. He has released, okay, when Boris was doing his thing, okay, right, Steve Bray was playing, I don't know how many of you have heard of this British comedian. His name's Benny Hill. And there's a song, the Benny Hill song, okay? And he would play it on his speakers loudly every time Boris Johnson came out, right? He would just play it. It was hilarious. I don't know if you've ever heard it, the Benny Hill theme tune. Oh my gosh. Okay. This is Steve Bray doing another protest outside Downing Street. It's too much. Yeah, so as I was saying, half of these bills that they passed was to get rid of Steve Bray. Okay, that's why they created a buffer zone around Parliament so he couldn't stand outside and heckle the politicians as they were going in and out. And that's why they gave the police powers to impose noise-based restrictions on protest. So when he's out there playing his music, yeah, oh, what is it? Yakety Yak. That's it, Yakety Yak. That's the name of the tune. He's out there playing Yakety Yak, okay, as the politicians come and go. Yeah, so he's not shouting at them now, but he's heckling them by the music he's playing. They couldn't stand him. It was really getting to them. So that's why they impose the noise-based restrictions on protest. They also did it because they wanted to criminalize one-person protests. So this is three of the reasons why they did, three of the things that this new act brings forward into law. Three of them, three of the six, were specifically targeted against Steve Bray. This man has been on this for the last 5 years. Not every day, but often. Probably at least 3 days a week. Okay, so number 4, gives police power to impose restrictions on public assembly. So that's an issue. Okay. So that means that, okay, it's going to get a bit dark here. There was a vigil last year, I believe it was last year, March. And the police felt that they had the power to impose a restriction on this vigil. We're going to get into more of that later. Point 5, it creates the offence of willful obstruction of the highway, as I said, right? So willful obstruction of the highway is targeting people like Extinction Rebellion. It's targeting groups like Just Stop Oil. It's targeting groups like Insulate Britain. Okay, so those are the people who are protesting. Steve Bray, Just Stop Oil, Insulate Britain, and Extinction Rebellion. But Just Stop Oil is a coalition of groups. So it will include people from maybe Greenpeace, Insulate Britain, and Just Stop Oil. And Extinction Rebellion, that's the one. So they will be like an amalgamation of all these groups. So that's part of the reason why they also wanted the bill to go through as well, because Insulate Britain were going out onto the M25 and stopping traffic and bringing traffic on a motorway to a halt. Right. Why are these people protesting? As I said, Steve Bray, 5 years he's been protesting. Just Stop Oil, a coalition demanding the government stop giving out new licenses and consents for exploration, development, and production of fossil fuels in the UK. Okay. Insulate Britain wants the government to insulate millions of homes as low-income earners, including the elderly, those retired, are at risk of developing very bad health and death every winter. Okay. At this point, it's not just the protesters who are being targeted and arrested. At this point now, journalists are being arrested. They're not taking part in the protest. They're simply reporting on the protest. They're being arrested. Many protests are actually taking place in this country, and they're not getting press coverage. And some of that, I do believe, has to do with the police just deciding, you know what, we are not going to allow you to report on this. So that's now an issue. I believe I may have put it in the feed. But the Conservative Party is marching towards authoritarianism. It's a problem. It's a major problem. Where's this stupid thing? Okay, hold on a second. Right. It's a major problem. Let's have a look, see if I can find it. Okay, I can't find it here. But what I'll do is I will add the links to these particular videos that are on YouTube and these particular articles that I'm citing. I'm citing. Now, I've also brought up, I also brought up vigils. Last year, a young woman by the name of Sarah Everard was kidnapped, brutally raped, and murdered by a serving police officer. It was huge here. And although the murderer was picked up quickly, there was a vigil held for her. I think it was March, the end of March. Was it March 31st? I can't remember. But there was a vigil held for her. During the vigil, which was mostly women, the police, mostly male, decided, and this was happening during, we were supposed to have lockdowns at that time, but it was outside in the park. The police, the nation was witness to, I would say, quite honestly, and maybe I'm wrong, but the nation was witness to a level of brutality against peaceful people, not even protesters. They were holding a vigil, a peaceful assembly. We witnessed the police go in to this crowd of women, beating them, pushing them, knocking them on the floor, pushing their faces into the ground. We witnessed men being violent towards women. Police officers, male police officers, being violent towards women. This was a wake-up call for white middle-class people. I can tell you that I personally have never really had any problem with the police. In fact, please excuse me, I'm just going to get a tissue. Oops. I'm ever so sorry. You're seeing more of me than you want to. Okay. I know arresting journalists is crazy. You're right, Paula, it is. Now, in fact, not only have I never really had a problem with the police, I have been an active participant in my local community. So there was a time every month I would attend what we would call a CAPE meeting, where I would sit down with the local safe and neighborhoods police officers, and we would discuss various issues like crime and antisocial behavior and other issues in the local neighborhood. They would tell us about how the crime rates are going, what crime trends they're seeing, etc., etc. We would sometimes people would come in and they would give them information on stuff that was going on in the local neighborhood. Like, for example, there's people smoking drugs down there around the corner. When you're doing your rounds, please remember to look down there around the corner, and they're normally there at this and this time. So people would talk about things like that. Okay. So my relationship with the police has I've been very fortunate in that my relationship with the police, I haven't really had any negative issues. I mean, okay, there was a time when the policeman knocked on my door to tell me that one of my neighbors had died. That was pretty negative. Not because the policeman was awful, but because it was horrible news. It was horrible to hear that. But for the first time, many British people saw what can happen in a police state. For the first time, many British people were questioning the powers of the police. And it was awful. I will leave links to articles about this issue also. So everything right now with the government seems to be moving towards authoritarianism, which is a worry. And that is why I'm doing this series on the future of British democracy. I don't see any other tarot reader doing anything like this. And although they will just look at the future of American democracy, not to say there's anything wrong with that, even tarot readers who are not American, no one's looking at what's happening in the UK, which is why I'm doing and I do what I do. So I've given you the background, and I'm sorry that I've spoken for such a long time on this because, you know, it's a big subject and I felt that it was necessary to give people a background if they didn't already have knowledge of this subject, and I imagine many of you will not. So with that being said, we're going to look at let's see, I was saying the future of British democracy, the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act 2022. Right, we're going to look at how this is going to go. Are things going to get worse? Will there continue to be clampdowns on people's civil liberties in regards to protesting? I think that's what I'm going to look at. I think that's the question to ask. Will the government continue? Because you see, the thing is, when we're looking at civil liberties, it also includes the elections bill, which I'm going to cover next week, taking away people's ability to vote. Then there's the judicial review bill that will make it harder to take the government to court, as I said. Then there's getting rid of the Human Rights Act. So I think the question is not will the government continue to take away our civil liberties? We're looking particularly at protests. Will the government continue? Okay, will the government legislation, the act, will it, I don't know if anyone has any suggestions here how I can word this question. Will it escalate in regards to protests? Will they try to pass more legislation? Will the legislation actually pass? Yeah. Okay, will the government be able to pass more legislation to outlaw protests? That's the question. Okay, I'm using my Game of Thrones tarot deck. Ooh, you don't want it then. Okay, And I'm also going to use, I'm not sure if the Rebel deck is really appropriate here, but I'll try it. I'll try it. I'll try it. The Rebel deck, Rebel Oracle deck. I'll try it. I'm not sure if I should, because I'm not going to have a look at the archetype cards today. Because today is not about doing a personal reading, I'm not sure if the archetype cards are really appropriate. I will probably use, I think, the astrology, Heavenly Bodies astrology deck. And I think that this calls for an Oracle of the Seven Energies Oracle deck as well. Simply because with everything, because we're talking about the tumultuous effects of what is happening on a nation, it would be good to maybe leave us with something to either ruminate on that will calm us down, that maybe call us to action. I don't know. I'm just spitting words right now. Okay, so these are the cards I'm going to use. Yeah, these are the cards I'm going to use. Right. Okay. Before I do my cards, I will, I will do a little prayer for my nation. Oh dear. Right. Okay, here goes. I'm not going to do a Celtic spread. I think I'm going to pick 5 or 6 cards. Yeah, 5 or 6 cards. Although I might do a Celtic. It depends. It depends what Spirit tells me. Mother, Father, God in heaven, and Lord Jesus, your divine emanation. I ask will the British government escalate the act in the Police Crime and Sentencing Act 2022? Will they escalate the act? Do they feel that they have enough powers now? Or do they want to push forward a program of even more authoritarian crackdown on protest and people's right to free speech? Britain is full of your children. And for their sake, and mine being one of them, I ask you to reveal the answers that I seek tonight. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen, amen, amen. Okay, let's have a look and see what's up. Yeah, I've been on now for 44 minutes, so I don't want to spend too long on doing this. I just felt it was really important that everyone had a background and an understanding of the subjects that we're covering. Hopefully this will be the longest video in the set. Okay, 3 cards. Oops. Right, there's 3 cards there. Right, that's number 1. Okay. Right, let's see. Oops. I hate when that happens. I'm really rubbish when it comes to shuffling cards. And it's not like my hands aren't big enough, because the cards really ain't that big either. Okay, yes. Yes, they have been arresting journalists. I will put a link in the description, because I think I can alter it into journalists being arrested, etc., etc. I will put a link there, but I'll make sure I try to do it. If not tonight, I'll definitely do it tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, Paula, I wouldn't say that this is happening specifically because of Rishi. It's not specific to Rishi Sunak. It's happening because of since Boris took over, since we came out of Brexit, it's been happening. Okay, is it going to become authoritarian? Is it going to become, they're going to crack down on protests? Will they launch any new legislation to crack down on protests? Okay, I'm going to go with that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm just doing it this way. Okay. So it's not because of Rishi. This it's been happening ever since Boris took over. The Brexit ERG people have been wanting to do all kinds of crazy things, like take us out of the European Court of Human Rights, which the UK actually set up. We were a founding nation in that. I think, it was us who set it up. And this is about immigration, which they say they want to do something about it. They don't. Okay, let's see. More authoritarian. Will there be more authoritarian acts to crack down on protests? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so it's been going that way. And I mean, at this point in time, from my perspective, and as I said, everything in here is allegedly and in my opinion, but from my perspective, I don't really think that they actually want to do anything about immigration. This is part of a bigger culture war. They know they don't have anything of substance to offer your average British person. So in order to keep them voting for them, they need to appeal to our most base nature. And our most base nature is things like the same things that they've been doing in the US, where they've been talking about trans people and just to stir people up, to give people something to get upset about, really. Okay. Oh, okay. This is interesting. overarching themes of this reading, we have Scorpio, intensity, exposing, purging, and renewing. That sounds about right. Then we have Capricorn, ambition, realism, and methodical steps. I think one could say this is the authoritarian card. Then we have Mercury, think, learn, network, and communicate. This is very interesting. Okay. I'm not sure if this relates or not, but I'm just going to put them out there. First card I have here, don't let your issues mess it up. That goes under Scorpio. So we have intensity, exposing, purging, and renewing. The issues, purging the issues. This is the culture wars. Second, I have drink that smoothie, unfriend that a-hole, and throw some crap out. This is under Capricorn. Ambition, realism, methodical steps. This is the authoritarian stuff. We need to get rid of it. Okay. Oh my gosh. I was right to pull these cards. It will lie to your face. And this is in Mercury. Think, learn, network, and communicate. This is about the culture wars. Lying to your face, misinformation. One person saying one thing, one person saying another thing. You don't know who's telling the truth. Well, at least one of them is definitely lying. I mean, okay. Now, I wasn't going to do such a long one, but I'll do it quickly. Okay, Three of Cups, the celebration, the celebration. It's funny you mentioned Boris, and we have the celebration. Ooh, the sun, illumination. I'm not surprised this one turned up, and it's at the base of the reading, the foundation. The Seven of Swords, skullduggery, and covert maneuvers. Okay. In the past, the wheel of fortune. The wheel turns. The wheel turns. It turns up and it turns down. Oh, interesting. The Queen of Spears. I'm not going to read this as one person. I'm actually going to read this as a number of women. Ooh, in the immediate future, judgment. Okay, in the mind, you have the Page of Swords. The environment is the Queen of Queens, the stable queen. Is she that stable? Aha. Hopes and fears, the Eight of Queens. You know, for a card, for a deck, asking about democracy, interesting that the environment and the hopes and fears should be coins. Is there a correlation? Ooh, Ooh, and the last card, we have the 9. The 9 of Swords. Okay, let me do my thing. Now, I like to consult my book because, you know, I am not a human encyclopedia. Some people, when I was young, they would say to themselves, say to me actually, Sheraton, oh yeah, that girl, the one who swallowed a dictionary. However, I may have swallowed the dictionary. I didn't swallow a dictionary. Too papery. But that doesn't mean I'd remember all the words. So, yeah, these cards don't look nice. They don't look nice. All right. Well, okay. So, we have the celebration. The celebration of the success. The celebration of the success of Brexit. The celebration of the success of the Act passing. So they were clinking glasses and feeling super duper duper happy. Okay. Underneath that, we have the 7 of Swords, the skullduggery. So they were celebrating their success of having passed this bill. There were objections to the bill in the upper house, the upper chamber, which is the House of Lords. There were a number of objections to the bill. They managed to whittle the bill down to half of what it was. So the things that I've read out to you today, the 6 points, there were more like 12 in there. So they've managed to whittle it. The Lords refused to pass certain things, and they managed to pass half of the things that they wanted to pass. But the skullduggery, why did they want to pass these laws? They wanted to pass these laws because for personal gain. They wanted to pass these laws. They disguised the laws as necessary. They disguised them as necessary because we already had certain laws in place to deal with things like obstruction of the highways. So we already had laws in place for that. We already had laws in place to deal with the purges on the traveller community, as I discussed before. We also had laws in place to deal with things like noise disturbance and antisocial behaviour. They said that they wanted to pass these laws to limit protest, but, you know, limit people who are causing a public nuisance. We already had laws for that. So this was about personal gain. This was also about fear. With the country plunging into a recession, with the cost of living crisis being so dire, I believe that on average, food had gone up a few months ago by something like 15%. Now food's gone up by somewhere between 22-25% or something like that. You're going to have a lot of people protesting. There's also issues as well. There's also issues as well with unions. The nurses from the Royal College of Nurses, that particular union, has decided to stage a strike, a proper strike, not work to rule, a proper strike. They have been a union for, I think, is it 130 years or something like that? 130 odd years. In all the times, nurses unions have protested about their pay and conditions, there has never been a proper strike by nurses. There's been work to rule. There has never been a strike. Now, whilst patients will be taken care of in hospital because nurses don't generally go out on strike, so patients will be taken care of. There will be a skeleton staff making sure that everybody is okay and kept alive and stuff like that. But we're going to see the first strike of nurses. Or I think, is it today? I can't remember. It might be today, actually. So there's that. So you have the nurses striking. You have the rail workers striking. You have the lawyers were striking earlier this year. The government quickly reached an agreement with them. You have the communication workers striking. So that's postal workers and people who also are engineers for companies like BT, as well, British Telecom, as well as customer service staff across the telecoms industries striking. Let's see. There's the postal work, there's the communication workers, there's the rail workers, there's the nurses. Oh yes, and the doctors are striking. Anyone else striking at the moment? If I've missed anyone out, I do apologize, but there are other people striking too. Oh yes, sorry, teachers are striking. So we have a number of strikes taking place. We are very much in danger of having a national strike, where a number of unions from different sectors, their members will go out on a general strike. That's it, a general strike. The government actually want to limit workers' right to strike. This is fear. This is skullduggery and fear. When or if things continue, which is part of the reason why, even though the budget was terrible, it wasn't as awful as it could be. Because they realized that when people can't afford to heat their homes, they can't afford to feed their children, they can't get to the NHS, which is another issue that we're going through at the moment, because there's not enough staff because of COVID, and obviously Brexit. As well as the fact that they won't pay them, but hey, anyway, there's so many reasons. So the government are in fear. They're in fear of the protests. They're in fear of a general strike. They're in fear of there being mayhem and chaos on the streets. And they know that people putting the pieces together are blaming them. I mean, we've had Tory rule now for the last 12 years. So if the country's messed up, whose fault is it? You can't blame Vladimir Putin for everything. They love to blame Putin for the cost of living crisis and the issues that we have with gas, which is actual gas, not petroleum, etc. So they love to blame Putin for everything. We knew last year, July, that our energy prices were going to skyrocket. People were talking about this from last year's summer, that the energy prices were going to skyrocket to levels we'd never witnessed before. So we knew that last year summer. Putin only invaded Ukraine in February. How the hell could the price, it be purely down to Putin invading Ukraine. How on earth did that affect the cost of my electricity last year, September? How? How? I mean, really, I would love for someone to educate me and tell me how Putin invading Ukraine in February affected the cost of my electricity in September. I would love to know. Please feel free to comment and educate me on how that could happen, because I mean, you know, so there's that. Okay, in the past, we spun the wheel. The wheel goes up, the wheel goes down. Okay. Something about that bird there. If the wheel doesn't stay balanced, the bird will fly away. But the wheel's got to turn. Nothing stays the same forever. Okay, crowning the reading, we have women, and not just any women. Oh no, this woman is a real piece of work. She ain't nice. She's not kind. She lacks empathy and compassion. And she's got a temper. They had conversations. They had conversations behind closed doors in regards to moving forward. There was an understanding that Brexit was going to leave the country poorer and worse off. There were studies, or should I say, what do they call them? Analyses that were done in regards to leaving the single market, because Brexit got properly done. I think it was last year, the 1st of January, it was properly done. We were properly out of the EU. There was some analysis that was done, and there was a paper that came out, and it was the case scenarios: best case scenario, worst case scenario, most likely case scenario. In the most likely case scenario, I think it was called a yellow paper or something like that. I don't recall. I can't quite get it. But there was something along the lines of issues with food shortages, issues with what's the word? Demand outstripping supply. So demand was outstripping supply, and that would result in a rise in inflation. Food would become way more expensive. There was going to be issues with food shortages. The analysis continued that there would be protests and riots. Now, there's the government we have is right wing, but it's right wing in a way that we have never seen before in this country. And you had the previous Home, and I say the previous Home Secretary, even though the previous Home Secretary is the current Health Secretary, but before that one, there was a next one, a lady by the name of Priti Patel. Or not so Priti Patel, I would say personally. Not because she's not a beautiful woman. She's a very beautiful woman. But her nature is not quite as lovely as her outside. And There was a time when she was saying that in regards to the migrants crossing, that we should use gunboats to shoot the rubber dinghies out of the water. Those are the people who are coming over from France who are asylum seekers. We should shoot them out of the water. That the Royal Lifeboat Service, the personnel running those lifeboats, they should be prosecuted for rescuing migrants in trouble in those rubber dinghies. So if they can see a dinghy going down and people on board, including children, that they should be prosecuted for rescuing them. Except, I mean, obviously there's a number of problems with that, but there's also a major problem because it's against maritime law. If you see a boat, a dinghy, any kind of vessel on the water in trouble, and you spot it and you don't give them assistance, then you can be prosecuted under maritime law. It's international law. So the thinking behind that, to murder people in the middle of the British Channel by opening fire on them or leaving them to drown, that's the mentality of the Queen of Spears. It's not so much logic like the Queen of Swords. This one is just a real bitch. It's that mentality. Judgment. We're coming to a crisis point. It's coming pretty soon because this is the card in the immediate future. We're coming to a crisis point where it's a matter of discernment. It's, do you make a decision based on your desires and your ego and what you want, or do you make a decision based on what is right, what is morally right? We say we are a democracy, and yet we are banning protests. People may find the protesters irritating and annoying and incredibly inconvenient. However, in this country, what have we gotten due to protest? Women got the right to vote in 1917. People got the right to weekends. So you'd work 5 days a week instead of 7. People got the right to maternity leave. Okay. People got the right to sick pay. Okay. All these things came about via protest. People got the right, this is the Equal Pay Act, equality under the law. There's rules about justice, that you have the right to a fair, impartial trial. There's all kinds of rules. How did these things come about? They came about via protest. You cannot call yourself a democracy if the people who live in it do not have the right to protest. So we're coming to a crux point. Discernment, judgment. Do you do what is morally right, or do you satisfy your own desires? In their mind, bad news, bad news, bad news, bad news, bad news. They're quite aware that from now until the next general election, and they've spoken about it, they say this winter is bad. Apparently, next winter is going to be worse. The energy price cap guarantee that we had, that Liz Truss brought in, I think that's probably the only good thing that she may have done. And some people say it's not so good because she could have dealt with it another way. It was set at £2,500 for your average household. It's in April since Rishi's come in, he's put it up to £3,000. So it's gone up by £500 for the average household. Obviously, some households use more electricity or more energy than others, but generally, average goes up by 500. When it goes up, there's also additional help that we have this winter that for the majority of people will not be in place next winter. So they're quite aware that protests will increase. They're quite aware they will increase. The environment. Queen of Swords. This queen is normally all about stability, careful management, methodical thinking, one step in front of the other, perseverance, blah, 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 blah. Let me just double check a thing. Queen of Queens. I mean, Queen of Swords is often seen as a real so-and-so, but yeah, as I said with that one, ruthless, deception, envy, manipulation, lies. Okay, that was for the Queen of Spears. But anyway, same thing. Right, Queen of Pentacles, the environment. So, okay. I see it, yes. Yes. Oh dear. Okay. This whole thing, everything with the Tories, as usual, what does it come down to? Money. Greed. Money. Oh, crumbs. This is bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. Fiscal recklessness. Entitlement. There's narrow-mindedness. Narrow-mindedness in regards to fiscal issues. Yeah. Narrow-mindedness in regard to fiscal issues. That's the environment. There are things that they could actually do that would actually help the economy and the average person. They won't do it. Eight of Coins, also known as the Apprentice card. In this reading, however, this is about cutting corners. This is about their fear or their hope, taking shortcuts, a misuse of skills. Dishonesty and devious business practices. Ripping off the system. If this one is greed, then sure bloody this one is ripping off the system. I ain't even told you guys about the PPE contracts. That's another scandal. So, okay. So the question I asked was, will they be able to escalate? Will they be able to escalate? the that they act against protest. Well, my final card here is the Nine of Swords. This card is about anxiety. This card is about anxiety. I really hate getting this as a final card because it's not really a final card. Granted, it's anxiety brought on by your own endeavors. It does signify nightmares, but it doesn't really give me the answer. Let's have a look at the bottom of the deck. Ace of Coins. That's often a yes card. The Chariot. The Chariot. Also often a yes card. Things moving fast. The Knight of Spears. The most impetuous of all knights. The one who rushes in where angels fear to tread. You know what? Yeah. They will seek to escalate the bill. They will. Okay. I asked for these to be outcome cards to give me an idea about the outcome. Got this one, the Call of the Muse. Beautiful woman, beautiful card. In this case, not beautiful. There's a call to authoritarianism in here. There's a desire to have more control over the state and the people in the country. A beautiful uncaging. Now, these cards are not normally read upside down. In this case, I would say the key, you see there's a key in the lock here. The key is not opening the heart. The key is closing the heart. The final card. The door is closed and it is what it is. What you think you're seeing, fascism, authoritarianism, attacks against democracy, attacks against your civil liberties. That's exactly what it is. I'm not going to sit here and tout conspiracy theorist type stuff. Although, to be fair to conspiracy theorists, there's a difference between someone coming up with a crackpot conspiratorial idea, like, I don't know, Hillary Clinton, instead of being what she was a Secretary of State, right? She had so much spare time on her hands as a Secretary of State, one of the highest positions in the US government. She had so much spare time on her hands. She was also personally running a paedophile ring outside of a pizza shop. Was it in New Jersey or New York or something like that? Yeah, she was doing that as well as being a Secretary of State, because she had all this extra time. She was like, oh, what should I do in my spare time? I could go golfing. I might take up painting. Maybe I'll spend more time with my grandchildren. Actually, you know what? I don't want to do any of that. I want to run a group for men who like to indulge with women of who are underage. That's what I want to do with my spare time. I don't know. The mind boggles. So I say that the reason I say that is because in some cases, what they called conspiracy theorists were not conspiracy theorists. If we look at the issues around COVID and the discussions that were happening amongst scientists, not just some person just waffling who had no background in science or in biochemistry, had no knowledge of how infectious diseases work. No, peer-reviewed scientists were having conversations discussing things about COVID-19. They were called conspiracy theorists. They were called conspiracy theorists. They have the educational qualifications, they have the professional knowledge, skills, and experience. They worked in labs for their entire professional lives, but they were called conspiracy theorists. The whole theory about the lab leak, they were told they were conspiracy theorists. They were censored. They were banned. They couldn't go on YouTube. They couldn't go on any social media and discuss any of these issues. And now everyone's like, yeah, of course it came from a lab. It was clear that the virus displayed gain of function action. The same thing these scientists were saying in 2020. Why do I say that? Because we are moving towards fascism. We are moving towards authoritarianism. And half of us are asleep and don't even realize it. When the government is talking about banning the right to protest, they're talking about taking away your right to free speech. You can be one person on the road with a placard, walking up and down, saying your piece. You can be arrested. You can be one person standing on the road, saying nothing, just playing music, something like yakety yak, and be arrested. And they can take your sound system, and they can charge you, and they can put you in prison. But hey, it is what it is. We need to wake up and we need to recognize we are no longer we're not tiptoeing towards authoritarianism. We have already methodically taken steps towards it. And if we are not careful and we don't wake up, then that is exactly where we will be. Oh, okay, guys, I'm really sorry. I didn't want to go on so long today. Paula, thank you so much. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot. In the show, whose wolf is that? I don't understand, Paula. What wolf are we talking about? Paula, I don't understand. What wolf are we talking about? Oh, the card. The card. Okay. Oh, did you see a wolf in the card? Did you see a wolf in this card? I don't understand. Um, hmm. I can read the thingamajig for you. Oh, where is the thingamajig anyway? Oh gosh, where's the thingamabob? Oh, I don't know where the thingamabob is. You know what? I don't think the thingamabob wants to be read tonight. Um. Oh, in the GOT deck. Okay, the wolf. Yeah. Okay, in the GOT deck, the wolf belongs to Rob Stark, I think. I'll double check, but I believe that wolf is Rob Stark's wolf. I don't think it's John's. The Nine of Swords. Let's see. Nine of Swords. No, that's Nine of Swords. Oh, here we go. Grey Wolf. Yes, it's Rob Stark's direwolf. He's caged at the Frey stronghold. So yeah, that's the night that Rob turns up to the twins, and yeah, he turns up to the twins for the red wedding. His wolf is put in the stables, and Rob and the entire Stark alliance are murdered. They're all murdered. Well, apart from Bolton. Bolton doesn't get murdered because, you know, he was in on the plan. He was part of the plan. But yeah, so that's the one where Grey Wolf is Grey Wind. It is Grey Wind. Yeah, Grey Wind is put in the stables, and they fire the crossbow into the stables to kill Grey Wind. So he can't avoid the arrows, the bolts from the crossbows. And then after that, once he's dead, they cut off his head and sew it to Rob Stark's body. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that, Paula? Hmm. Yeah. Well, okay. All right. Well, I'm going to. This has gone on for just over. Oh yeah, he's caged while the slaughter happens. Yeah, yeah. Um. Hmm. That has really horrible connotations for the UK. That has really horrible connotations for the UK. That's what I meant when it comes down to this card being the key doesn't open, it locks you in. It locks you in while the slaughter happens. Well, people, you know, I really wish that I could end this on a positive and cheerful note. I'd love to find this humorous, or try to find some fun in it. But it's difficult to do that. It's difficult to do that. Okay, well, you know, I'll be doing this on a Friday. So Friday nights are going to be a bit more serious. Hopefully, we can find something that will be a bit more cheerful. How successful they'll be, well, they'll have their degree of success, it's clear, and they will continue to go down the road that they want to go down, which is also clear. But you know what? We are a funny people. We are a hilariously funny people. And we are a country full of people like our Steve. We are full of people like our Steve. Like Steve Bray. We are full of people like that. And you know what? We will always be like that. We will always take the piss. We will always have a laugh. That will not change. We will always have our crazy people. Well, you may call them crazy, but let's be honest. Are they really? Are they really crazy? Or are they just people who say, no, we're not going to put up with this? You know? Yep. Where was that one I found? Yeah, there was that one I showed you guys of him sitting on the toilet, which I thought was hilarious. Here we go. Here we go. Yes, on a lighter note, I will leave you with the last picture of Steve Bray taking the mick in the way that he can. And let me see. What's that one? The last one. Anyway, there was that picture of him sitting on the loo outside Downing Street. Here we go. On a lighter note, you won't stop us protesting. He's not making any noise. Yeah, he's got a placard, and he's also sitting on the toilet with his trousers around his ankles. So, yeah, they won't let us make any noise, and they won't let us shout, and they won't let us play music. And he's got his underpants on, so you can't arrest him for public indecency. And there's no law that says you can't put a toilet on the pavement and sit on it and read a newspaper. Yak. Exactly. There's no law against that. So until they come out with a law that says you can't do that, we will still have many citizens like Steve Bray protesting in their very own idiosyncratic and unique way. So with that, I shall say good night. If you're watching this in the morning, good morning and good evening. Okay, hopefully I'll see you on Monday and we can have a little bit more fun at how ridiculous life is. So let's see, what are we going to look at on Monday? Ooh, Dominic Raab. Will he stay or will he go? All right, that's something for you guys to Google. Check out Dominic Raab, a man who said a woman was a misogynist because she didn't like men. Okay, then. Good night. Thanks for joining me.